Hello everyone, welcome to the Ant-Man channel on this Friday, January 18th, 2013. Wow, today I actually spent my day listening to some sermons and I woke up not really going straight to, my mail and listening to like the Alex Jones show. I went straight to listening to a sermon and kind of meditating in God's word a little bit this morning, and I feel completely different than I do usually every day, man. I'm telling you, like it says in the word, you shall like it. You man does not survive on bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. And it is true, man. I feel like so much at peace right now. I have like I feel like clear and refreshed. I'm not so agitated and aggressive today. But there's a couple of points that I'm going to make with this article from WND. It's under the column Faith. It is written by Michael Carl. Michael Carl is a veteran journalist with overseas military experience and experience as a political consultant. He also has 2 master's degrees, is a bivocational pastor, and lives with his family in the Northeast United States. And his article reads, West Point, far right dangerous to U.S., reports unloads on supporters of civil activism, individual freedoms, and self-government. Of course, if you are informed these days and you are an American citizen, then you know that being uninformed is a huge disadvantage to you these days. Seeing that the lazy are they're pretty much rewarded for their laziness today, and you hardworking portraits of what being self-sufficient Americans are being used to pretty much fund these lazy people to sit on their butts and get free stuff all day. I mean, it's your tax money. So let's go into this article about how the Democratic Socialists are coming after you. A new study released by the U.S. Military Academy's Combating Terrorism Center is linking opposition to abortion and other fundamental positions to terrorism, and pro-life leaders say it's just a way to paint them in a negative way. The study, Challenges from the Sidelines Understanding America's Violent Far Right, says the major far right threats are from a racist white supremacy movement and an anti-federalist movement and a fundamentalist movement. Like back in the Civil War days when Abraham Lincoln was president, they had to practically the KKK wanted to pass gun restriction laws so that the blacks couldn't fight back when the Southerners or the South wanted to keep slavery and not pass the 13th Amendment that Abraham Lincoln signed. Now you have the Democrats calling you patriots out there KKK because you don't want to give up your guns. It is an absolute. They're turning the general public on you. They're trying to demonize anyone who is a believer and an activist and a pro-gun enthusiast of the Second Amendment. Author Ari Perliger cites anti-abortionists as an active threat for terrorist activity. The anti-abortionists have been extremely productive during the last 2 decades, amassing 227 attacks, many of them perpetrated without the responsible perpetrators identified or caught. Perlinger writes, and while in both cases the 1990s were more violent than the last decade in the case of anti-abortion, the trend is much more extreme, as 90% of attacks were perpetrated before 2001. American Life League President Judy Brown believes this is a smear tactic. I can see exactly what is going on with reference to the pro-life movement. The use of 2 words expose the bias and hatred for what we stand for as a movement. Those words are attacks and violence, Brown said. When it comes to pro-life activism, the definition of violence is retooled to include screaming, sitting, or blockading, and in the situation when someone who is clearly mentally imbalanced does something actually violent or near an abortion mill, the act is immediately attributed to a pro-lifer, even when there is no evidence that the perpetrator was ever involved with a mainstream pro-life effort, Brown said. All of us have issued statements condemning violence because abortion is the ultimate act of violence, and in response we are called to imitate Christ, not the abortionists. So the paragraph is designed to paint pro-lifers in a way that scares others, whether or not the depiction even remotely reflects the facts, which is, of course, it does not, Brown said. The report comes from a center at the institution where men and women are trained to be army officers, while the center's report often address threats from Al Qaeda and other extremists. The latest work addresses the cross section of America that authors perceive as the far right. It is the hard left that paint themselves as libertarians when they're really authoritarian control freaks and democratic socialists. I mean, that those people are always going to try to tell you the sun isn't bright, the sky isn't blue, and if you don't agree, then you're a terrorist. And you know what I mean? It's pretty ridiculous these days. It alleges anti-federalists are those who have strong beliefs about the government, believing it to be corrupt and tyrannical, and those Americans who support individual freedoms and self-government. It claims that those who adopt a liberal philosophy are future-oriented, while conservatives are linked to the violence of the far right and live in the past. You see, it was kind of like what Pastor Perry Stone was saying because I was listening to his sermons this morning. That's exactly what he was saying when I was listening to his. He preaches a sermon. It's called I forgot what it's called, like the American Dream Destroyed, or I forgot what it's called, but it's pretty much what he was saying right here. The liberals are going to try to say that if you believe in God and all that stuff, that you're old-fashioned and that you're not future-oriented and you're not as smart as them. So they're going to always shoot insults at you and try to demonize you and try to make you look violent and like you are like the Adam Lanzas that shoot up elementary schools, when they're the ones putting gun-free signs on these elementary schools. Well, that's like putting a sign for criminals up saying, hey, we're vulnerable, come and take everything that we have. It's that easy. There are criminals out there. It's not hard to imagine that there are people that are willing to steal to get ahead in life. I mean, the gangster culture is force-fed down your children's throat, and you don't think that there are people out there that are going to steal and kill for what they want? It's pretty obvious. Liberal worldviews are future or progressive-oriented. Conservative perspectives are more past-oriented and in general are interested in preserving the status quo, wrote the authors. The far right presents a more extreme version of conservatism, as its political vision is usually justified by the aspiration to restore or preserve values and practices that are part of the idealized historical heritage of the nation. Another suspect group in Perlinger's study are people who support the sovereignty of the United States, and he concludes the anti-government movement is a recent phenomenon. Violence derived from the modern anti-federalist movement appeared in full force only in the early to mid-1990s, and is interested in undermining the influence, legitimacy, and effective sovereignty of the federal government and its proxy organizations, Perlinger wrote. The anti-federalist rationale is multifaceted and includes the beliefs that the American political system and its proxies were hijacked by external forces interested in promoting a new world order, in which the new United States will be absorbed into the United Nations, or another version of global government, Perlinger wrote. They also espouse strong convictions regarding the federal government believing it to be corrupt or tyrannical, with a natural tendency to intrude on individual civil and constitutional rights. Finally, they support civil activism, individual freedoms, and self-government. Extremists in the anti-federalist movement direct most of their violence against the federal government and its proxies in law enforcement, Perlinger wrote. I mean, the way she talks about it is as if we're talking in metaphorically, or we're not talking like in reality wise. Well, the federal government has been known to be funding both sides of the wars for decades upon decades upon decades upon decades. They start the wars through black propaganda in the society, and then they end up funding both sides of the war. They make ridiculous profit off of war. You don't think that the Federal Reserve and the federal government doesn't want war? That's like telling you don't want business for whatever business you run. They happen to be very evil and very corrupt to the point where they profit off of among thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of lives being butchered, and these people are getting rich off of that. So yeah, they're at the heart of all what's going on. The United Nations is also part of their operation, and they go around to other countries around the world and totally destroy their governments. They put what's that guy that they just made president of Egypt or whatever? I mean, that guy was put there on purpose so that their entire country would just go, crumbling down. I mean, they place dictators in these. All the countries in the world are all in cahoots with each other. All the high powers are all in cahoots with each other. They all want the same thing. What the focus on everything that's going on right now is pretty much the United States, because if we give up the guns, you better say hello to global government, because it's coming. If we do not defend our constitutional rights to defend ourselves from a tyrannical government, then that's the only puzzle piece left for the New World Order to come into play. And then everything is going to start going rapidly into socialism and pretty much communism and third world country, here we come. That's why you have police and military coming out, and that's why you have congressmen retiring, reporters on the mainstream media retiring. All these people know what's going on. They also espouse strong convictions regarding the federal government being in its corrupt. I already read that. Herb Titus, a constitutional law professor, former dean of the Regent University School of Law, and distinguished fellow of the Inter-American Institute for Philosophy, Government and Social Thought, say it's an attempt to link conservative thought with violence. Professor Perlinger has adopted the strategy of many left-wing members of the professorate, concentrating on the behavior of a few in order to discredit many of who hold similar views but who do not engage in any form of violence, Titus said. His theory is that of the iceberg, that which as seen may be small, but it hides which is a much larger threat. Let me read that again. His theory is that of the iceberg, that which has as seen may be small, but it hides what is a much larger threat just below the surface. Obviously, the professor disagrees with those who favor small government, cutting back on federal government encroachments upon the powers of the state, and to discredit this movement focuses on a few gun-toting militia, Titus said. Titus turns his attention to who he believes is the source of the study. Like so many in the Obama administration, Perlinger does not want to engage in any dialogue on the issues, but just discredit an entire political movement by ad hominem charged words, Titus said. Perlinger is not a serious scholar, but a propagandist for the existing regime. This article goes on and on and on. Let me see how much time I have. I've got like 3 minutes. I don't think I could read the rest of this in 3 minutes, but if you want to go look at it for yourself, it's called West Point, Far Right Dangerous to U.S. You can go and read the rest of this article on WND.com. Perlinger just goes on to continue about how, Obama came on and he made his last speech of his first reign as dictator in this country, and he went on. Only you patriots out there that know what's going on can see how he's addressing you through his words, pretty much, when he says, I could either be the life of the party or a party pooper. And what he's saying to you is that you guys out there who know about self-government, that are very self-sufficient, independent people out there, very you're not the peer pressure driven yuppies that are giving this country to hell in a handbasket. You guys know what makes this country strong. You're under attack. You're the guys that are under attack. You obviously should know that everything you hold dear and know that is true is being perverted by these left-wingers. But as she's going on to say is that in Barack Obama's statement or his speech that he made in his last reign as dictator, as he gets into his second term, he went on to actually address you patriots out there. He personally addressed you, saying, I'm coming for your guns. Let me translate what he said. He said, I'm either going to be the life of the party or a party pooper. Let me translate what he said to you there. I'm coming for your guns, whether you think it's right or not, whether you think we are tyrannical or not. We're coming for the guns, whether you like it or not. What he just did is he created a culture of spies, of snitches, by giving doctors and EMTs and everyone who works in the EMS field the right to snitch on you if you own a gun. Because as an EMT, I know that I can go into your house. I can pick up your Medicaid number, Medicare number. I can look at your entire house and see your living conditions, what type of person you are, what I can tell a lot about you by going into your house. But now I have the authority to tell the government and the people that I work for whether you have a gun or not. That is engineered. They want to know if you have a gun or not so that they, when they go door to door to take the guns, they know what houses to go to. And this is going to be a new culture of snitches coming out. The Obamanoids versus you guys out there who are free thinkers, who don't drink fluoride all the time, who don't eat GMO all day, aspartame, all these things that poison your mind, this liberal garbage on the television that you see all day, the banker cartels